Welcome to the Mid-Penn Bank Podcast, hosted by President and CEO Rory Retrieve. In this episode, Rory is joined by Dr. J. Raman, Professor and Chair of Urology at Penn State Health Milton S. Hershey Medical Center. Here's the conversation.
All right, so do you know how long it's been since you've been? I mean, you've done the podcast one other time.
I did it, I think 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago.
Maybe 3 years ago.
No, it was 2 years ago.
Was it?
Which, I thought it was last year, but then I was looking back and it was actually the 8th episode.
Wow.
What episode is this?
58?
Oh my.
58.
Wow.
That was 50 episodes ago.
That's
And it was one of our best.
You know, it's interesting. I think when I was coming over the last time, you had just interviewed Al.
Yeah, Al Kaminsky.
Yes. And so I was just trying to listen to it.
That's absolutely right.
What was the riff? And,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember listening to that on the way over before we did our podcast.
I think Al was maybe the second person that we interviewed outside of like bank employees. So you were the third. And that was great.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
So give me some updates on family.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about No Shave November.
Yeah.
So we all know Dr. Raman. He's been involved with us over the past, this will be our 10th year of No Shave November. And in our previous 9 years, we've raised about $1,310,000 together. Penn State Urology down in Hershey that Dr. Raman is the head of.
Sure.
So since for the last 2 years, so we haven't had an update.
Yeah.
So your oldest son is now in college, right?
Yeah. It's and you probably remember this from when your daughters went off to school. It's the dynamic in the house changes.
Absolutely.
And it's really funny for so long. And I think about this when we started, 10 years ago, my children were I guess that was 10 years. So it was like 8, 5, and 2.
Right.
And so, now we get to the oldest one goes to college, and my wife and I always joke we've been playing zone defense for the last 10 years plus, right? 2 of us, 3 of them, and
so your youngest is 10.
So my youngest now is he's 13.
13. Okay.
Yeah. So the youngest is 13. I have 13, 15, and then 18, just about to turn 19. So we were just down in Philly this weekend celebrating his birthday with him, and it's different. The dynamic in the house is different. We actually miss, they reach a certain age, kids do, where they are fun people and they can have a real conversation with you.
Right.
And they have a sense of humor and you can make a joke and they get it. And so I think that's been some adjusting in our house, like missing sort of having his humor and his, perspective and things like that. So it's been great to see him. He loves being down there.
And he's running for Penn, right?
He is. And that's, it's been an interesting thing that he's talked to us about because he went from being really probably one of the 2 or 3 best runners in the state of Pennsylvania. And then you go to college, Division I athlete, and everyone on your team was one of the 2 or 3.
Was one of the best. Yeah.
Correct. And so I think that's been a little bit of, wow.
So he's running track.
He runs cross country in the fall.
Okay.
And then he goes straight to winter track.
Right.
And then he goes to spring track. So he is really like an all year athlete for them.
And he won a state championship in high school, right?
He won the mile. So he won the Pennsylvania indoor mile. I think he was 3rd in the cross country outdoor championships. He was 2nd in the mile outdoors. So he's been sort of, top 3. And now as he's gotten to college, he's getting to run varsity, but he's on the back end of the team. Right?
Sure.
And I think psychologically for all of us, right? You go from being, big fish, small pond, you go to a bigger pond and, it's a little bit of a gut check.
So is the cross country season over?
He actually runs in the Ivy League championships this Friday. So my wife and I are driving up it's in Van Cortlandt Park, right in the Bronx. So we're driving up there Friday morning.
Have you been able to see a lot of his meets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, one of the really nice things is they run a lot of their meets out in Lehigh, Haverford. So really easy for us to get to. Princeton. I mean, places that are pretty.
And are these like one-on-ones or are they?
all invitationals.
Yeah, all invitations.
Yeah, I think different sizes, but I think trying to get all these kids out of class on a Friday, I think, it's hard to do a lot of individuals. So they usually have pretty large invitationals. And then, the kids all come out from wherever.
So he's studying economics.
Studying economics, yeah.
How has he been able to, I mean, that's a lot to go to an institution like Penn, take a difficult degree like economics, join a varsity sport right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure he was probably, practicing in August.
Yeah, they start early August.
Yeah.
Yeah, preseason. So
like how does an 18-year-old kid, maybe he's used to it because he was running cross country and track in high school, but
I think it's all different. I mean, high school is high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're a good student, you know how to manage the workload. Cross country and sports in high school or cross country and sports in high school. I mean, he runs 20 hours a week. This is a full-time job.
Right.
Or at least part-time job. And then he's got classes on top. I think that part has taken some adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
Classes are harder. Kids are smarter. Expectations are higher. And then also juggling the athletics. But I'll tell you this, I think one of the great things of being, whether it's sports or music or a club, when you're with people who are maybe not just your year, right? Like sort of vertically integrated. You have seniors, juniors. It's really nice. You've got some folks that can kind of give you the long view that, hey, don't worry about it. This is kind of normal of how you settle in. But I think he's still getting used to how do you juggle being an athlete, which he loves, with the work you need to put in to succeed and do well.
I would imagine that being on a team, starting your practices in August, that might be a little bit helpful for the assimilation.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think he walked into first day of classes and he knew 25 people.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
And his roommate was somebody that he had been recruited together.
Mm-hmm.
So, they don't like the dorm they're in, but they are good friends. And so
are the dorms at Penn, are they a little outdated?
There are some, there are some that clearly have had a facelift and look really nice. And there are others where they're in need of a facelift. So it's like, I think almost any campus, right? I think that, but the freshmen always probably get sort of the lower end dorm. So he's already itching for, where am I living next year? I said, look, your other option is you have a great room, but you don't have a roommate that you like.
Right.
So which one's going to be worse for the period?
So he picked his roommate.
You're allowed to pick your roommate.
Right.
And he and this other roommate of his actually were both recruited. They visited Penn the same weekend and then just stayed in touch. And they both committed to go there. And then they decided his roommate's in Wharton Business School. So my son has an interest. He's in College of Arts and Sciences, but economics. So they have a lot of similarities just beyond the running part of it.
So how's the roommate situation going so far?
It's good. Yeah. And he's a good kid. Parents are great folks. They live in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been able to see them. The nice thing is a lot of parents come to these meets. So, you get to catch up with them.
So now the other two that are still at home, they're obviously adjusting to their big brother being out, but how are things going for them?
Yeah, I think it took them a little, the chi was off for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's very funny. The two younger ones used to always sort of team up and then, sort of argue with the oldest one. Now the oldest one's out of the mix. And now the two of them are now having to sort
argue
of
with each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
But it's good. I think my middle son, I think has had a chance, and maybe you've appreciated this. I think the middle one's always a little tough, right? The oldest one is the oldest one. The youngest one's the youngest one. And especially with my oldest son being such a good athlete, I think my middle son didn't have quite the opportunity to really shine, or at least feel like he could shine. And now I think, part of him, I think, really appreciates that, he's the one where, right now a lot of attention's on and your sports, your classes, so on and so forth. And I think it's, the middle child's a tough one.
Scott, he's trying to draw me into saying things about my daughters, but as you know, all my daughters listen to the show. So I can't say anything other than all three of them were angels.
Yeah, you do have to walk carefully with that.
Very carefully. I can't
tread carefully.
Right? Absolutely. They get along wonderfully, all three of them, and they were great kids. Very easy. Like we never had any problems.
I'll tell you what's interesting though. It's now that my oldest has moved out of the house, he and my middle son actually get along a lot better.
Yeah.
And my middle son's got
absence makes the heart grow fonder.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. And my middle one's he's a fashion sense, like dresses well, colognes. And my older one is now that he's got like a girlfriend, my oldest one's relying on the middle one for like, all the fashion tips and things like that. So it's pretty funny.
And how's your wife? How's she adjusted to when you guys took him down to school?
Yeah.
Were you more upset or was your wife?
No, my wife by far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my perspective when he finished was he had a great high school. He was ready to go, and I was ready for him to go. And I think my wife, I think they're very close, and so they that was really like a tough transition. And the nice thing is, to be perfectly honest, and it's not a reason to go to school close or far, but it has been very nice to have him an hour 40 minutes.
That is nice. I mean, my two older ones went to Pitt.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy, like you can't go out for a day.
It's a long drive.
Because it's a long drive for a day.
Yeah.
So as a consequence, we didn't, we generally would go out for football games and parents' weekends, things like that. But it wasn't like in every weekend. If we had to go out there every weekend to watch them run in the sport, because that's what they did. Yeah. It would have been tough.
It's hard.
Yeah.
What about your youngest, Temple?
Yeah, Temple, but she's worse because her whole freshman year of college, she was in Rome.
Yeah.
And she's back in Rome.
Oh.
So she had 1 year down in Philly.
Okay.
And she's back in Rome just for this semester.
All right.
Then she'll be back in Philly for the last year and a half. And that kid is like, I don't even know where she is. Like every week I have to say to my wife, where is she this weekend? Because they don't have classes on Friday or Monday.
Oh, wow.
Because they want them to, because it's so easy to travel.
Yeah.
Once you're over there. So she's, I don't know, she's going all over the place.
Good for her.
Tunisia.
That's great.
Places that I wouldn't even think about going to, maybe even by myself at this age.
Yeah.
And she ends up doing all those trips mostly by herself.
Wow. Good for her.
Yeah. Because she, there are other kids that she could go with, but if no one wants to go, she's not going to not go.
But not everyone's like you have to have a certain personality.
She likes to travel. Yeah. She likes to see other countries. She has now been on, I think that this is when we do these, our podcast stats, and we've been on all continents. I think some of that's because of her. So she's now she was just in Tunisia. She's now been to 4 continents.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is
and
great.
She's what, 21? 20.
20.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So she'll hit all 7.
Right.
Without fail.
But I don't want to brag about it too much because then the other two will be like, why are you bragging about her traveling? Why is that?
You got to tread carefully.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. So my oldest one is in her 2nd year of law school at Penn.
Penn, yeah.
Yeah. And the middle one works for Penn Medicine. So a lot of Penn.
Yeah.
Those two are living together, and she's going to Villanova.
Okay.
For a master's degree.
And are they living in University City area, or
They're living in Fittler Square.
Okay. Yeah.
Really nice apartment. That's a good area of Philly.
And they live together.
They do.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
they have
nice.
a third roommate who was one of my middle daughter's roommates in college.
Oh, very nice.
In fact, I think freshman year they were roommates, and then the last 2 years.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So how are things with your group and Hershey?
Yeah, it's good. I'll tell you this. It's interesting. And I may have told you this even a few years ago, but when I got to Hershey.
So you've been there just over 10 years, right?
Hershey, I've been here since 2008.
Okay.
So pushing like 17 years.
Okay.
So I moved to Hershey from Dallas, and it was sort of surreptitious. We're not like, I'm not from Central Pennsylvania. My folks didn't grow up here, and but my wife is a pediatrician. She does a lot of research, and I wanted to work in an academic hospital. And 2007, 8, and not a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Hershey said, sure, I think we can sort of satisfy both. So we've been here since 2008. 8. When I got to Hershey, there were 5 of us. I was the 5th, and then shortly after I arrived, one person retired. So we were only a group of 4. And we have just grown and grown. I think now we're up to 32 or 33.
32?
So,
wow.
it's not just Hershey, right? It's Holy Spirit Hamden on the West Shore. It's the Lancaster Hospital. It's St. Joseph's in Reading. So like most health systems, growing. And so it's good. I think the thing I like the most, which is probably maybe similar, I love recruiting and bringing people in. That's like my favorite part of my job.
Right.
Is, finding talent and then figuring out how do you get talent to succeed in whatever specialty, whether cancer, not cancer, benign disease, whatever it might be. And I think that's been really the funnest part. And we keep recruiting. Like, we just had somebody sign yesterday and another one that's looking to join. So that part has really been the most fun is recruiting and bringing people in, a lot of transplants. So not necessarily people that have just lived here, but some that are from here and some that are just saying, hey, I like what you guys have built. We want to be part of this.
Do all those other hospitals, urology groups, are they all under the same direction?
Yeah. So I would say it all started with Hershey Medical Center, right? And that was sort of the flagship. Then the next that came on board are Holy Spirit and Hamden. And all of those folks were employed in our department. So they practice at Holy Spirit Hamden, but our residents go out and work with them. They do research with us. We do our screenings there. St. Joseph's is very similar. Lancaster is still, the hospital's owned by Penn State Health, but I think it's a potpourri of who will work there. There's a Keystone Urology Group, which is sort of a group in the Lancaster area. Some of our folks go there. And that's more of like an open hospital system, which is, anybody that wants to practice can go in and out. While I think some of the other hospitals are much more closed, right? Like you have to be an employee of the health system to practice.
Do you ever go to any of the other hospitals, like Holy Spirit or the West Shore?
Have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Holy Spirit are probably our biggest or busiest groups outside of Hershey is Holy Spirit Hamden. And we have 8. We have 5 urologists, 3 AP, so we have 8 over there. And then, so I certainly go over there, probably not as much as I'd like, but I think you have to like walk around a little bit to get a feel of, not every place is going to be a clone, right? You probably know this, right? They all could be part of the larger brand, but they have things that are unique about them. And you can't just go in and say, well, this is the way we're going to do it because this is the way we do it at Hershey. You kind of have to have a little bit of a sense of, all right, what's the culture? What's the, what drives, what's good, what's not good, what can we do, what can't we do, what don't we want to do here? So I do go to Holy Spirit Hamden. I've gone to St. Joseph's, which is a much more small community hospital type feel. And then Lancaster Hospital, Penn State Lancaster is sort of the next frontier that we're sort of really looking at, how do we build it up?
So when you started, there were only 5 in the group?
5.
And now there's 30 some?
Yeah, there's over 30, and then we have, as with most specialties, we've added a lot of nurse practitioners, physician assistants. So I think our total team is pushing like close to 40, but so vastly different.
So back when you started in 2007 or 8, were those urologists in other hospitals? And
yeah, good question. So I would say no, very few. So, the healthcare environment in central Pennsylvania has changed so dramatically, right? Back then there was UPM, well, it was just Pinnacle.
Right.
Community General Hospital.
Which was the old Harrisburg Hospital.
The old Harrisburg Hospital. There was no Lancaster Hospital. Holy Spirit was owned by Geisinger. There was no Hamden Hospital. St. Joseph's Hospital in Reading was just a private hospital. And now you have, the consolidation, right? You've got UPMC, you have Penn State Health, you have WellSpan. And so there are no more single freestanding hospitals, right? They're all acquired by somebody else. I think some groups, like I would say the UPMC group their model has very much been as they have moved into different areas because UPMC has such a big footprint. They have acquired groups into their practice. So a group, for example, the group in Harrisburg, which was largely private, is now UPMC Harrisburg, which is really sort of embedded within it. I would say our model. We have picked up a few people, but a lot of it has been recruitment of people outside from there. And some of it is, for example, at Hamden Holy Spirit, like we have a few people that do cancer. So we had to recruit people that were fellowship trained in cancer that wanted to work there. We had to recruit someone that's fellowship trained in stone disease because we have to be able to do complex stone disease. So I think that some of the needs were we had to bring people in who had specific training because that was what it needed.
So not every urologist is working on cancer.
No.
Not every urologist is working on stones.
Correct. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's probably within the domain of urology, almost 9 different subspecialties.
Really?
Right? You've got cancer, prostate cancer, kidney cancer, bladder cancer. You have infertility, like folks that are having trouble having children, the male infertility, there's specialists. You have people who have kidney stones and more stones. Those are stone specialists. You have women, for example, or men with incontinence. We have incontinence specialists. You have young children with congenital problems, kidney blockage, that's pediatric urologists, so on and so forth. So I would say that when you go into the general community, so you go, say, an hour north of here, you're not going to necessarily have a specialist who only focuses on cancer. You might have somebody that is a general urologist that does a number of different things, but if it's a higher acuity, they're going to send you to somebody that does that.
Right.
Our group at Hershey, we have a few people that are general, but then most have a focus. Like 90% of what I do is prostate cancer and kidney cancer. Somebody else, 90% of what they do is stone. So the idea is, what I always tell people is, if you come and see me and you're coming for me with this problem, this is all I do. So, you're going to find out what's the latest and greatest because this is just what I do. But if you want to come and see me for a different problem, I'm going to say, look, I'm happy to give you the 20,000 foot view, but if you really want the best, you should probably see my partner that does this every single day.
Right.
And they can tell you the pros, the cons, A, B, C, D, E, much better than I can.
So when you got there and there were only 5 urologists, were they all like working on different specialties, or was everyone just a general urologist?
Very much. Our old chief was a pediatric urologist, so he did children. I did robotics, although even back then, when you move to a new area, you can't be too selective, right? People need to know you're a good person, you're a good doctor, you'll do a good job, you're available when things are good, you're available when things aren't good. And that takes, and I sort of tell our new partners, that's like you have to build up street credibility. And that takes 5 years. So early on, you can't walk in and say, oh, all I see is A and B. Well, you know what? You're not gonna see very many patients.
Right.
You have to be willing to see and help everything. And then as time goes on, sure, you can start to carve out a practice, especially if you build a larger group. So in the early days, there was one pediatric urologist and the rest of us did everything. And then as we sort of grew, I think it became clear that my focus was robotics. So like I had most of my stuff was robotic surgery for prostate cancer. Then we had to bring in somebody else who did this. Then we had to bring in somebody else. So even now, as we strategically grow, it's not just bring in somebody. It's we have a need for A, B, or C, and we advertise for A, B, and C, knowing that that's kind of the need that we have.
And do you generally, when you're trying to fix those needs, are you recruiting like experienced doctors, or are you trying to get people out of school?
Yeah, great question. It's a mix. It really is a mix, and you can't have sort of a department of sort of professors and associate professors, all of whom maybe have speaking engagement places and are sort of teaching and all of that, but don't have sort of the time and the allocation for patient care. Similarly, your pedigree is you can't have just everybody that's fresh out of school who is still kind of learning the trade. Meanwhile, there's nobody there that can do the mentoring, nobody there that could be carrying the flag of Penn State when you go to regional meetings, national meetings. So it's a blend. It's a blend. someone said to me a long time ago that their philosophy on recruitment was sort of what Vince Lombardi used to say with the Packers, which is if you identify good talent, you'll figure out how to make that person work. And I kind of subscribe to that, which is I sort of, we'll put a broad thing, but if somebody that's mid-career wants to move here and they fit and they're going to elevate our game, early career, mid-career, you figure out how to get that person in because it makes the team better.
Is culture a big part of it when you're trying to recruit? Are you trying to fit people into the culture of what you've built over the past 18 years?
Yeah. So I think it's all about culture. I mean, I think if you look at medicine, about 50% of people will change practices within 3 years.
Really?
Yeah, that's a statistic, 50%. So that's hard on them, right? You just moved your life somewhere and 2 or 3 years later, you're moving somewhere else. It's also hard on a practice because the reality is it takes about 2 or 3 years for somebody to actually build a practice that's busy enough that, at least for an organization, it's a profitable one, right? You invest money and you're going to reap the dividends several years later. So 50% will change within 3 years. I don't think it's all related to money. In fact, I'm almost certain of it. I think it has to do with, are you getting to do what you want to do? Do you feel valued by the people? And do you like who you work with? Right? Like, are these folks that are going to come get your back when, I don't know, your kid has a baseball game and you need to trade a call weekend because you really need to go see that? Is somebody going to step up and say, no problem, I'll switch with you. You get me on the back end at some point.
Right.
To me, it's all about culture. And, I'll tell you a story about this that kind of helps. And it's what I've thought about. So in the last 2 years, we've had several of our partners in their 40s really have like major health issues, and where they've been out for a significant amount of time. And so that always puts a strain, right? You have two people it's not like you have some people sitting on the bench ready to go in. I mean, everyone's playing a position and suddenly you have two people out.
Yeah.
You've got to fill that gap. And to me, the great part that kind of gives you a clue on the culture is there wasn't one time that I had to go and any of our secretarial or admin staff came to me and said, hey, we need the call to get covered. We need this weekend. Folks just pitched in. Yeah, I got it. I'll cover it. And so I always say, I think your culture is defined by like, how do people behave when you're at your very worst?
Right.
It's easy when everything's great. Financially you're well, your full team is stocked, call is great, schedule's good. But I think when you're in sort of those tough times, that to me is your culture.
So what do you do to build that culture? Like we do, because we're hiring people out of college, we're hiring people out of high school, we're hiring people from other financial institutions, and trying to get them all on the same page with our fairly distinct culture, I think. There's a lot of things that we do, including what Scott does.
Yeah.
He runs our university. We have a good development group. We have a good coaching group. And I think that, all those things help build our
100%.
culture. So what are the things that a medical practice or a medical group, what are the types of things that you can do to build that type of cohesive culture? Yeah.
No, I think it's a great question. And I say to a lot of people, I don't think culture is, it's not pizza on Fridays. It's not necessarily.
That could be pizza on a Friday, but that's not the only thing.
That's not the only.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not. The only thing can't be dressed down. With football jerseys. Like it has to be more.
Right.
So those are great, and you're right. Pizza parties, everyone likes it dressed down, but it can't be it be the all end all.
No. You can't just throw a pizza party, every once in a while on a Friday and say we got a great culture.
Correct. And so I think that's the hardest. I think that's the hardest thing. So, I mean, I have a few thoughts on it. I don't know if they're right or wrong, but, I think the first thing about culture is assuming that everyone is motivated to do their best to succeed. So I don't micromanage. Like, you all know what you have to do. Whether you want to come in early, you want to come home, you want to come in late, you want to go to your kids' practice, you want to, you and your wife want to have dinner. If the work gets done, the work gets done. I don't need to dictate the hours that happens with. And so I think, that gives people a little bit of all right, I can, in this setting of a hectic lifestyle, I can manage some of it. I think the other is I really try to meet with our folks regularly to find out, what's good and what's not good.
Right.
And I tell them right off the bat that, look, if it's not good or you don't like something, I need you to tell me, but I also want you to give me a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me what don't let me try to guess what the solution is, because it may not be the right solution.
Right.
Tell me what you think the solution is, and I will try to see if I can help.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing is that I think you talked about the university here. Same idea, right? People want to know that you're sort of investing in them. They're not a warm
Absolutely.
body who's just plug and play, right? There is some investment in them. There's a long-term
Mm-hmm.
course here, and I even tell our staff, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I would love for them to all stay forever,
Right.
but they stay for 4 or 5 years and they get a great promotion somewhere else to be a division chief. You can pat on the back, and
Part of the tree.
it really is.
Absolutely.
Right. And then, when you go to your place, people are going to say, wow, this person left Hershey, Penn State, and went to Pitt, UPMC, and became the division chief of something over there.
Yeah. If that happens, I mean, you're going to miss the person.
Right.
But you take pride in the fact that they were able to grow enough with you.
Yeah.
That they were able to take on a responsibility like that. And that's part of your tree.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think it's all of that. I think, the challenge in medicine is, it's probably the one industry where computer-based technology has made things less efficient,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, electronic medical records are like the bane of existence.
Really?
Yeah. And it's not because of what EMR does, right? The whole goal of an EMR is you go from having like paper, right, which nobody can read, to now you have a centralized thing where you can click and you can read a note. The problem is that most EMRs are now set up to hit all the key points that are needed for billing, coding, insurance, and payment, not necessarily communication of medical information. The things that when I read a note, I need basically a 5-liner that tells me what I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need the rest of the jargon that's just for, what needs to happen for coding purposes. And I think that's where, there's still, with AI and stuff, there's a lot that really could and should be done to make EMRs, which are computer-based, much more, I think, user-friendly, as opposed to almost like an added workload to it. So that's a big culture part of it, which is the EMR.
So what are the most exciting things that are happening in the world of urology now? Like I would suspect that if I said, from when you started in 2007 or 8 to today, how much is, research advanced things, you'd probably say a lot.
Yeah.
But like what's coming out right now, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, cancer related, but just in the practice of urology, like what are the things that you're most excited about?
Yeah. I would say that there are probably 2 things, and I'll tell you the 2 things that have changed the most since I've been here for almost 20 years that I think, and they do actually have to do with cancer, but it really sort of is exciting because it's a different way of thinking about it. And I'll sort of give you the story. So the first is real simple. How do we manage prostate cancer? Okay, and why is this important? Because 1 in 8 men, right? So
1 in 8.
1 in 8. So you walk around your office and you come in contact with 10 guys. One of them is going to have prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. When I did my training, the mantra was everybody with prostate cancer, irrespective of low grade, high grade, level of aggressiveness, needs to have surgery or radiation. Okay. And that was appropriate for some people. And then other people, there are some side effects, right? Side effects with any kind of treatment. And what we've learned sort of over time, and it's sort of one of the things I'm most proud of that we've been able to sort of change in our culture here in central Pennsylvania, is Yeah, now there's a lot of men with prostate cancer, and they don't have the kind that's going to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come and see me, one of the great things about practicing an academic health system is that, I have no financial incentive to do anything. So I can survey people, I could operate on them. At the end of the day, same amount of money. And so the surveillance, like being able to counsel people to say, look, you have diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. Your prostate cancer that's low grade is not going to kill you. We're going to monitor this, and it's not going to impact your quality of life, and you'll be fine, and I'll keep an eye on it. That has been a real change. And it used to like 10% when I started, something like 60, 70% now of the appropriate low risk kind.
Wow.
The other thing that's really exciting, we just started doing this 3 years ago, was, and I'll give you the breast cancer analogy, right? Woman has a small breast lump, right? They have a lumpectomy. Maybe they get radiation, chemo, and then they go on surveillance, right? So because of all these great tools we have for prostate cancer, right? MRIs, better biopsies, we're finding prostate cancer earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And even some kinds that need treatment, we're finding them earlier. So if you think about, the old way was everyone needed to have surgery or radiation. That's almost the equivalent of telling every guy with prostate cancer or every woman with breast cancer, you need to have a double mastectomy right out of the gate, right? And you'd say, well, geez, that sounds sort of crazy right now.
Right.
Shouldn't we have something that's more tailored? And so the last 3 years, we're one of the only ones in the area doing it. We're actually doing now just ultrasound treatments to parts of the prostate. So I did 3 this morning.
Mm-hmm.
They're all coming in. They go home the same day.
Or outpatient. Yeah.
And and some of these guys are older. They're going to still but 70s. But things where they come and they say, Doc, I want my cancer to be treated, but look, I want me and my wife like to travel. My quality of life is really important. These are things that I have a grandchild. I have to go to their graduation. So. But that has been exciting because when you think about it, your care of patients shouldn't be binary. It shouldn't be, oh, we're going to monitor it, or, oh, you need to have surgery or radiation, right? There should be some middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been one of the most exciting things probably in the time I was here. And one of the things after I'd been here about 10 years, 12 years, I started pushing the folks at Hershey to say, look, we need to adopt this technology. It can't be all or none. Because patients around here are starting to look for and ask, well, what about, this option? Or is there, so that's been one of the big ones. I think personally speaking, that's been sort of the most meaningful transformation that I could see for like how I care for men.
Right.
If that makes sense. I think the other big one is just our drugs and therapies are getting better. It used to be you had stage 4 prostate cancer was a death sentence.
Right.
Now, you can live 10 years.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, think about the late Greg Mace, right? I mean, we knew Greg Mace.
Right.
And, Greg had stage 4 prostate cancer, as he will share with people. This was not a big secret, but he had stage 4 prostate cancer for over 10 years.
Wow.
So that sort of, I don't want to minimize it, but what it has done is some of these drug therapies and treatments has taken what used to be a death sentence to something that is a version of a chronic disease, right? Not a curable one, but a chronic disease, right? So if you can take somebody who's in their 70s and you can give them 10 to 15 years, even if you have to control their disease, average life expectancy is 78.
They may end up not dying from that.
Correct. So I think that's been the other, and that's really like, I think our pharmaceutical partners who, they invest a lot of money, they do a lot of trials, but I've really seen in prostate cancer, this has been a game-changing difference in men surviving, even the ones that come in with bad disease, right? The ones where you're like, oh, surgery's not an option, radiation's not really great, you're really stage 4. Those folks used to go home and Google stage 4 prostate cancer and they were devastated. Right now it's, look, we have a lot of tools in the toolbox. We don't want to use all the tools, but we got a lot of tools in the toolbox.
So the 1 out of 8, what was that number 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you get to so I don't think we knew because we weren't testing.
Because we weren't testing, right?
So this is the great thing, which is PSA blood tests, and we've talked about this. If you think about checking for cancer, prostate cancer is the easiest one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a blood test that you can get, annual physical, painless, and at least gives us a clue. Now, look, not every PSA that's elevated equals cancer. And that's my responsibility, and our responsibility is not to jump into the rabbit's hole too early. But we don't know. So what we do know is before we were testing for PSA, there were probably 3 to 4 fold higher death rates from prostate cancer. So right now, 300,000, so on.
Then it was just a physical exam.
Physical exam. Or
when did PSA
95 to 2001-ish. So 95 is when it was introduced. 2001 is when I think you started to see the data showing that the detection rates were going up, but the death rates were going down, right? That great curve, which is you're picking up more, but less people are dying of it. And it's really interesting. In 2012 to 18, the government, the U.S. Preventative Task Forces, questioned whether PSA testing was helpful. Like, are we picking up too much? Like, are we just diagnosing all these events? So they sort of recommended against PSA testing for a 6-year period. And so a lot of primary care doctors didn't check for it. And I'll tell you what happened. Afterwards, suddenly the death rate started going back up. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I mean, how expensive is a blood test?
$55, $60.
So why encourage people not to?
You know, I think it's and I would say 2 things. I agree with you. And if it was me, I would rather know than find out that my PSA is 400, right? And then you're the cat's out of the bag. But what I think it sort of allowed a lot of us that do this to think about a little bit was, hey, you know, we need to be a little bit more measured. Maybe if the value is a little bit elevated, before we start testing A, B, C, D, why don't we just recheck it 4 to 6 weeks later? All right, if it's still high, rather than jumping into a biopsy, why don't we get an MRI? Let's get a picture.
Right.
Okay, if all of those don't look right, okay, maybe we need a biopsy. Okay, if the biopsy shows cancer that's not aggressive, maybe we just monitor it. So it really forced us, those that do it, to say, okay, we don't agree with you. You should be tested. And to me, that it sort of seems crazy not to test something that has such a capacity to prolong life and prevent morbidity. But the onus is on us to do better, to help counsel on the results and make sure that we're not being too aggressive.
You know, this is an interesting month for us at MidPenn because we're gearing up for No Shave November. Starts next week.
Yeah.
And at the same time, because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're giving out the checks from our golf outing that occurred in July. And the first of those checks always goes to the Pennsylvania Breast Cancer Coalition. And I don't know how much you know about that organization, but they do outreach to recently diagnosed women. You know, they send them care packages, you know, notes of inspiration, contact people that they can get to if they, you know, have questions. But they also fund research doctors, and they also do a lot of lobbying, you know, to get common sense mammogram stuff in insurance, et cetera. Are there organizations like that in Pennsylvania or any other place that would be for prostate cancer?
Yeah. So I would say yes. So yes, nationally. And I would say a lot of it's done, for example, if you look at like national advocacy, a lot of it is done by like our national organization, so the American Urological Association. And so, you know, we usually have a lot of advocacy done that's at a federal level on testing, coverage of tests, Medicare, you know, and a lot of it's driven by Medicare. And if Medicare and the government's cover, the most commercial payers will follow suit. So there's a lot of that is done at a national level. I would say probably at a statewide level, it's interesting, probably not as much as could or should be done. And I think the challenge is, to be perfectly honest, and maybe it's an excuse more than a reason, but you've got pockets. So you've got sort of the culture of what happens in the Philadelphia region, and that's a densely populated area. Then you come to mid-state, and you got Harrisburg, with the Capitol, and then you go out to Pittsburgh. One of my observations is almost in the last 20 years is those pockets don't, although we all have common themes, uniting the message for the advocacy is sort of splintered across different pockets in the state, as opposed to necessarily being a unified voice. And where does that unified voice occur? I mean, I would argue maybe probably Harrisburg, right? I mean, where you have all the legislators. But I don't think we do as good a job as we should at a state level.
Yeah, that's too bad. Because I think that, I mean, look, getting a breast cancer diagnosis has got to be one of the worst things that a woman could possibly hear. But getting a prostate cancer diagnosis has got to be one of the worst things a man can hear.
It can be, and this is where I talk to a lot of people about this. There's so many similarities between breast cancer and prostate cancer, both with regard to both are sort of very gender specific. Breast cancer women, prostate cancer men, similar rates. Okay, prostate cancer is maybe a little higher, but still, you're talking about very common disease entities. And if caught and detected early, which can be done by screening, prostate cancer, PSA, breast cancer, mammography, ultrasound, are often highly curable and treatable. If you look, though, at statistics, percentage of women that get a mammogram is pushing close to about 70, 75%. Okay, so the message is out. Women are really good at that. You look at men, percentage of men getting a PSA is 45, less than half. And I think a lot of it is the messaging. Like if you watch pro football in October, all the linemen have pink socks. The end zones are painted pink.
I think they've done a great job with that.
They have. You go to September, Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, right? And you think to yourself, I just saw the thing, Harry Carson was recently treated for prostate cancer, right? So, big person for the Giants. You just go down the list of all these different persons and you say to yourself, you don't see that messaging in September. Right. Where's the light blue? Where's the blue socks? And your demographic who's watching NFL football games is going to be men who are at risk for prostate cancer. So I think women have done a great job. I think men need to do a better job. And in some regards, I'll be honest, why I love No Shave November is because the message of No Shave November is not just about cancer. If I get you to go and see your doctor, okay, just get your preventative health done. Sure, you'll probably get a PSA, or I hope you will, but you're also going to get your cholesterol checked, you'll get your blood pressure checked, you'll get your sugar checked. There's about 8 or 9 things that are going to impact your life expectancy outside of my view of prostate cancer. And so I like No Shave November because when people say, what's No Shave November? I said, it's all about the messaging of health maintenance. For guys, I want you to, have you seen your primary care doctor in the last year, or primary care provider? Doesn't even matter. Yes, no. If the answer is no, why? Right. And why don't you make an appointment? And look, it's usually just going to be routine blood work. They'll listen to your heart. It's a 15 to 20 minute visit. But if they find something, you might be less likely to die of a heart attack in 5 years due to undiagnosed stuff. So I like the message of No Shave November. I'm particularly passionate about it because I just want to make sure guys get in the office and get checked. Right. Everything else will feed downstream from that.
I think it's the best part of No Shave November. I mean, we figured out a way to brand this and to really expand the awareness. And we'll talk in a minute about how you use the money and everything. But even if we didn't raise any more than $50,000, I think the amount of awareness that we're committing every year is really great.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I mean, just think about the community partners. We'll talk about them in a minute.
Totally agree.
How many community partners we have today versus then?
Yeah, I was walking through the Giant supermarket this weekend, and one of the checkout people saw me, and they said, "You're the guy with the beard in November." And I said, "That's how I know we got the message out, right? They somebody recognized me and said, "Oh, the beard November, No Shave November. I'm growing one too." Right. To me, somebody that's just I run into in the supermarket that brings that up. To me, all right, now we're hitting people. So
you said 45% of men get a prostate.
Less than 1 in 2.
So that must mean that's about the number of men that are actually doing a physical every year.
Doing a physical, and I would even argue, there used to always be this thing about getting a blood test and also getting a physical exam, right? What they've actually pushed more and more is if you don't want the physical and that's the reason you're not going in, at least get the blood test.
Go get the blood test, right?
Because, yes, there are a percentage of people you're going to miss because you don't do the physical. But if the physical is the reason you're not getting the blood test, at least get the blood test.
Do you think that guys are reluctant to do that because they just don't like to be vulnerable? Is that the thing?
Yeah. I mean, you feel fine.
Right.
It's almost like, you're almost asking yourself, look, I feel well. I don't have any issues. I don't have any problems. Why would I start looking for this? The concept of preventative maintenance, right? Preventative health maintenance. And I think it is sort of I feel fine. Why would I look for a problem?
Right.
Why would I do that? And I think that it is very much of a complex of, insecurity, right? Like, I don't want to go in there and I talk about my prostate and this and that. I think there's like an element of it where, and that's why I think it's so important that it's really people in the community and patients. Because if I go and I tell people, oh, you should get your PSA checked and you should go see your primary care doctor, it means something, but I think it means more if your friend you're playing poker with in your group of 10 says, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer last year. Suddenly everyone's like, whoa, this is one of our guys.
Right.
Like, tell me, and so I have a lot of patients tell me that when they go out with their friends, they're the ones asking, have you had your PSA checked? Do you know what PSA is? Some of them say no. They're like, all right, people educating people about this.
Well, I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge for us. Even after we maybe get to the point where we've raised the money that we've wanted to raise, I think that we're going to have a responsibility to keep this campaign going, to continue to expand that awareness because, I don't know who it was that first came up with the idea of the pink ribbon for breast cancer. I don't know if Susan Komen, that organization or whatever, but like nowadays it's like commonplace in October that football players are wearing pink. High school football players, college football players, and pro. But it wasn't like that always.
No.
So you just got to keep pushing the needle.
I think you do. I mean, I very much seen it. I feel like I'm sort of about mid-career.
Right.
Right. I've been in practice 17. I figured I'm going to practice for about 30 to 35 years. That's sort of my arc. And I feel like my second part of my career is you spend the first half building a practice. One of the great things I love living in this area is you live with your patients, right? When I trained in New York City, you practiced in New York City, but your patients all came from elsewhere. So you never really saw them. Here, I see my patients. I see them at the store. I see them at cross-country meets. I see them at the soccer field. I see them all over the place. And I feel like, when you're in a community like this, I feel like the second half of my career is, what can we do to get more people, guys in particular, checked, screened, seeing their physicians, just normal health maintenance, and less maybe beating the drum of, prostate cancer, specifically that. I think all of that comes, but it's, can we get guys to be more aware of their health? And what can we do?
Right.
Whether that's screenings, whether that's survivorship, whether that's going out into communities where they're not going to drive to Hershey or the West Shore to come and do a screening. You have to go to them. Whatever that might be. But to me, that's sort of like the second half of my career is, what can we do to make a difference in this area?
All right. So we've got year 10. We've got a goal that we set at the kickoff party last week.
We did.
What was the goal?
Well, it was 340 last year. And so I never want to get greedy. So I think I said 350.
Right.
350K. And I said, let's give it a run at that.
All right. And we've got, helping us out with that, some of our community partners from this year. Owls of Hampton, of course, back for another year. Be the Light Candle Company, which is owned by Nicole Straub. She has exclusive No Shave November themed candles. We've got both local Catholic high schools, Bishop McDevitt on the East Shore and Trinity High School on the West Shore. And they're just doing like collections for dress down days. And I
That's
think we're
great.
trying to pit those two against each other. We've got Bud Murphy Sports Bar and Restaurant out in Western Pennsylvania. And I think they've been a community partner for a few years. They got a bunch of different things going on. I mean, it's a sports bar.
Yeah.
So, you know, show up and eat some
That's right.
good food and have a couple beers and contribute. They're also doing a karaoke night.
Are they really?
I mean, we go out to that.
Yeah.
If
You go first then.
I would. Scott will tell you, I love singing. We've got the Craft Concepts Group. We've got Cultured Heat. Dented Keg Brewing Company. I did notice that a lot of our community partners end up being, you know, beer related, which is
That's
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Gilligan's here on the in central Pennsylvania, the Kratz VFW, the Halifax VFW, MJS Auto Service. They're giving $5 for each oil change they do in November. It's great. Steel Penny Cafe, $1 from each Chicago style pizza during the month. Swing at Likens, that's a golf course up in Upper Dauphin County. They're doing Wednesday night dine to donate. Tower Porter Improvement Organization, they've been involved since almost the beginning of the community partners. And Wishes Bar and Grill. So, you know, there's a bunch of different organizations. I think that's 16 different organizations trying to contribute to the cause. As of today, I think we're in the neighborhood of $70,000 or $80,000.
Wow.
Of the 350. We're not even
we haven't
November
even
1st
started
yet. I haven't even started my push, and I know that you haven't yet either. So I think we'll, you know, not that I want anyone to get lazy on this, because it's, you know, $350,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So let's work hard. Let's get out there and try to, you know, support those community partners and make contributions to the people that might be calling you and asking for it. But so how do you use the money? That's the thing that everyone wants to know. And I know that it, you know, what you were doing back in the beginning when we started this 10 years ago, in our first year's take was $11,000.
Yeah.
What you did with that money then and what you're doing with the much more money today is totally different, but kind of, you know, tell everyone what you
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And I feel like that's an important question because you know, one of the things that I always think about for fundraisers and when you raise money is, I want to be able to, and I need to be able to look people in the face and say, here's what we did with it. Otherwise, what does it mean? It just goes into some vortex out there. So I would say a few things. And you're right. When we started this a long time ago, it was to really fund a prostate cancer collaborative that was actually occurring across the state. And the goal of it was improve the care of prostate cancer patients. And that's continued. And has continued to improve what we do, but the vision and what we use it for has expanded a lot. So
that was kind of, as I remember, that was like a research collaborative.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it was, and you know, one of the things that I think is so great about that research collaborative is the principle of it was learning what different places were doing well and how can we emulate that.
Right.
So it was, you know, folks from UPMC, Penn State, Temple, Fox Chase, Jefferson, didn't matter. Didn't matter who was doing it well. It was, hey, what is your practice? What is your infection rate? What is your complication rate? What are you guys or women doing that we are not doing? So the collaborative, which was a research collaborative, was really geared towards trying to improve the care of men with prostate cancer or suspected of prostate cancer, and how can we benefit from others that may be doing better? And we've continued that. And as with most things, you know, like when you get proficient in one area, you have to then look at other aspects of it. So that has continued the research focus there. I would say, you know, the 3 or 4 things that have really sort of grown over the last few years is it goes back to some of what we talked about, screenings. Screenings. And part of what has expanded a great deal is it used to just be if you wanted to get screened, you would have to come to Penn State Hershey.
Right.
And that's just, you know, sort of a very myopic way of looking at it. So a lot of it is we are now funding screenings, so free to the patients, but we take care of all of whether it's, we have one coming up here on the West Shore, we had one in Hershey, we have another one at St. Joe's. St. Joe's, the number of people that came this year from last year increased by 5-fold.
Wow.
5-fold, 1 year. And then the vision this year is the Penn State has something called Mobile Lion Clinic, which is, you can go into more rural areas. And so, I have our team trying to work on, all right, what I want to do is I don't want it to be only at 3 or 4 sites. I want to be able to go, let's pick an area between here and State College.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pick an area between here and Altoona. Let's pick an area between here and Scranton. Let's pick pockets and let's try to hit groups where they're not getting checked.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe their access to, they don't hear the beating drum of get yourself checked, PSA. We have to go to some of these places as opposed to expecting they're going to come here.
Sure.
Otherwise, all you do is you just get the same folks. So screenings is a big one. The other one that has really been a big, passion project of mine is we've built up our survivorship group. So, when you go through a cancer journey, only a small fraction of that is the medical side of stuff. And that could be surgery, could be radiation, could be chemotherapy, hormone therapy. That's a small part of it. And that's a 15-minute office visit with me. Oh, your numbers look fine. I'll see you in 6 months. Or, hey, your numbers are going up. I have to have you see the radiation doctor, and then I'll see you in 6 months, or whatever that discussion is. I would be the first to say 15 minutes doesn't cut it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a reality of how current healthcare visits are structured. But there's a lot of elements of, all the things associated with you being a cancer survivor, anxiety, maybe depression, maybe your relationship with your significant other, male
Absolutely.
or female, quality of life outcomes, things that maybe you're cancer free, but you have some of these residual effects that are impacting. So we have really worked, and after COVID, we had a prostate cancer survivorship group, and with COVID, nobody could get together, and that's a hard thing to do by Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
People are talking about vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to a survivorship and talking about mental health and anxiety. You can maybe do that when you're surrounded by other people, but trying to do that by digital, just not happening. So we've really restructured it. And the other thing I learned is a lot of our patients are curious. They're very curious. So we've really rebuilt our survivorship group where we meet quarterly, and we have a speaker. And the speaker will speak on one of many things: diet, nutrition, something of just that everyone can benefit from: diet, nutrition, exercise, anxiety, depression. Pick a different topic. And then we have the survivors meet. And I'll tell you what's really great is the first 1 or 2 times they were all looking at me to MC the event.
Mm-hmm.
The last few, I could have just been a fly on the wall. We built a community.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I say is, and we advertise is, you don't have to be a patient at Penn State. You don't have to have gotten your care at Penn State. I don't really care. But if you are a survivor, come.
Right.
Come, bring your support network. You can get something from that.
Good. That's good. So, you're Penn State's obviously a university hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have doctors on your staff that are only doing research?
We have 2 that are doing 50% research.
50%.
Yeah. So some of the money we use are for research endeavors.
Yeah. So that's I was going to say with Penn Medicine. The first year we went down and gave them a piece of the pie. I think it was like $25,000, and they were acting like it was like the biggest gift of all time. And I'm thinking, geez, how could $25,000 be that important? And well, they explained it to me.
Yeah.
That the woman, Dr. Payal Shah, she's a research doctor,
mm-hmm.
but she's employed by Penn.
Yeah.
So they can't, she's got to earn her money.
Correct.
So she can spend her time, seeing patients,
mm-hmm.
which I'm sure she likes to do.
Yeah.
Or she can spend her time writing research grants.
Yeah.
And other things to try to get money. Or she can get contributions from, Mid-Penn Bank Celebrity Golf Tournament.
Yeah.
So to offset that. So that I think that's a really good, because ultimately, if we're giving her money, she's spending more time researching.
Right. As opposed to trying to get
and
money.
trying to come up with
100%.
a cure. And
Yeah.
so I think that's if you guys are doing that same thing with a portion of the money, I think that's
Yeah.
a
So
really good use of
we
money.
for this year, for example, we try to use a lot of the money. So I always think about it is we wanted to use money on research, and our forte is clinical trials,
Mhm.
right? So things that make sense to patients. And so we have 2 clinical trials in prostate cancer. One is a diagnostics trial, one is a treatment trial. But to the point that you made, we all have to see patients. That's the dollars and cents.
Mhm.
And funding at a government level and a state level for research is smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So if our folks basically saw patients and then had to write grants to do work to get some of these clinical trials off the ground, the clinical trials would never get off the ground.
Mhm.
Rather, what's happening is we use the money. I say, look, we have a funded supply. Here's a 1-year supply within our department. I want you to use that money. We'll apply it to there, and we have to see what the results are. But what I want to do is I want to generate results so that we can then go and say, we have done a preliminary clinical trial. We would like larger funding from the government, but here's our preliminary data, right? Proof of principle. You show something, and then suddenly that grant is more attractive,
Right.
right? It's okay. Well, this isn't something they just thought up. They've actually studied it. They're showing us data. So almost every year, I pick 2 research projects and ideas from a research angle that we use this for. And the whole goal of it is preliminary clinical research to get data that allows us to then go and say, okay, can we further this? Can we get a bigger grant? And without it, nothing happens.
Right.
The engine never starts. It's like having a really nice car, but you can't turn it on, so you're not going anywhere.
Right.
So we're very similar to them.
So your summary is the money is very important?
The money is a lifeline.
Yeah. All right. Good. Beautiful. That's the type of stuff I like to hear. So I want to make sure everyone understands this is a partnership. This isn't, Mid-Penn Bank writing a, $350,000 check. It's, roughly half. We raise half the money. You guys raise half the money.
Maybe 2/3, 1/3. You're being generous right now.
Somewhere in there. But it's, there's nothing I like more than seeing your guys.
Yeah.
And then when I say guys, I'm men and women.
Yeah.
They show up to things. They're engaging with the people that are around writing checks. That's a really good thing. But this has been a really good, solid partnership between Penn State Health and Mid-Penn Bank over the last 10 years. I'm looking forward to this getting kicked off next week. I'm not really looking forward to growing a beard, but it is what it is. Are you going to grow one, Scott? Of course.
Of course.
Yeah, you have to.
I
would agree, though. I would say you're totally right. I think the best part about this, and it's one of the things that I take very seriously, is we love and appreciate your support, but we also have to walk the walk from our end.
Absolutely.
And
no one does that better.
And it's interesting. A lot of our, we don't have 18 community or 16 community partners, but it's interesting. We and I rely on so many patients and patients, and they're mostly those that have already gone through the journey. And so when I come and talk to them about, hey, survivorship screening, and here are the research trials, they're like, yep, this helps somebody else. It's really interesting. This year we've been generous. The Hershey Bears were really good to support us this year because one of their on-air announcer, Jonesy, was diagnosed last year, and so that's sort of been a nice, in the realm of hockey and Hockey Fights Cancer. They have a big program, and then APR Supply.
Scott.
Yeah.
So you've brought some of the community partners to the table.
We
I
have.
know that they've been difference makers. Scott's done a great job.
Scott's done a great job, and it's really interesting. We set up a really nice relationship with his company. It's the same thing I tell a lot, which is, we run a health fair for them. And I said to Scott, Scott, part of the goal of when we raise money is that we want to be able to go back to businesses and say, what do you need? And if you need some help with getting your folks screened, checked, just basic health awareness, we're here. That's the partnership. We're helping raise money, but we're here to invest back in in yours. So yeah, Scott's been great. APR's been great. The Bears have been great. But it's the fun part about it is it's a fun month.
Yeah.
I mean, the money's great. Don't get me wrong. But
it's fun month.
But it's a fun
is.
month.
It is.
And I mean, every time it's more fun. You know, the kickoff event at Owls that came along a few years ago. We have a mid-month event. We have the 5K,
which was the mid-month event for you. Started last year, right?
Last year.
Yeah. So we added the Owls a few years ago. We added that last year. We added the Dash for the Stash this year.
Right. So I think it's a lot of great stuff, but it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
And
well, you gotta make it fun.
Have to.
And I think that in having fun doing it, it helps raise that level of awareness.
Totally.
So that's why I'm willing to grow the beard, even though I hate growing a beard. And, you know, we have our own beard competition, and I always lose that because he looks better without a beard and with a beard.
It's funny, you know, when I go to a lot of meetings at Penn State, I've had people as it gets closer to November say, how do we get what you guys have?
Right.
And I say, you know, you need to hustle, and you need a great partner. And you need both.
Right.
And you need a partner that believes in it, right? And believes in like the mission, believes in the vision, and is willing to go, you know, twice as much rah-rah to help make it happen. So
yeah, and you know, that didn't start with you and I. It started with Dawn and maybe Megan. Yeah. And but it grew from there. So
it has grown.
It's a fun time of year. We're gonna get ready to kick it off all next week. Really kick it off next week, because November 1st is, what day is that?
Monday?
Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't shave on Saturday anyway.
Yeah, I was getting, you just get a running start.
So maybe I won't shave Friday just to, you know, get a little kickstart. But all right, Doc, thanks for coming in.
No, it's great.
Love it. So give me, just as a parting thing, so obviously the 3 things that you could do to assure prostate health. Yeah. Get screened. Do annual testing. But what are 2 other things?
Yeah. So I'll even tell you, you know, when guys walk into my office, the 3 or 4 things I tell them: get screened, eat reasonable. I'm not a diet fanatic, but my party line is: if you eat what's good for your heart, it's going to be good for your prostate.
Mediterranean type diet.
Mediterranean type. The third is get 20 to 30 minutes of exercise a day. And sometimes people say, oh, geez.
Yeah, you could do that.
But walking counts. So, you know, I have a lot of folks that are retired. You know, go for a walk in the middle of the day. Walk your dog. And then the last one is, you know, I think that, you know, it's sort of the Zen philosophy, which is, you know, you should try to clear the mind, you know.
Stress does cause
100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, stress causes a lot. I mean, you know, and whether that's, you know, you do that through walking, exercising, whether you like to meditate, whether you just like to check out, doesn't really matter. But you have to be able to, if you think about stress and inflammation, that's a big one. So eat reasonably, exercise, get yourself screened, and try at least once a day to clear your head for about 10 or 15 minutes.
Beautiful. Couldn't get any easier than that. All right, Doc, thanks for coming in. We will be back in a couple of weeks. Who's up next?
Josh Kessler.
Josh Kessler. Great. We'll see you all then. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to the Mid-Penn Bank Podcast. You can find more episodes at Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon, and more. Do you have a question about the podcast? Email us at podcast@midpennbank.com. References in this podcast to Mid-Penn are to Mid-Penn Bancorp, Inc. and its subsidiaries and affiliates. This podcast expresses the views of its participants and may not represent the views of Mid-Penn or its officers and employees. In addition, these views are subject to change without notice, and Mid-Penn has no duty or obligation to update the information contained in this podcast. This podcast is being made available for informational purposes only and should not be used for any other purpose. The content in this podcast does not constitute an offer, solicitation, recommendation, or advice, whether legal, tax, accounting, financial, or otherwise. You are encouraged to consult with competent legal, tax, accounting, or investment professionals before engaging in any financial transaction. MidPen does not make any warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the information in this podcast, does not endorse any third-party companies, products, or services, and assumes no liability for your use of this information. Forward-looking statements should not be considered guarantees or predictions of future events. This podcast is sole property of MidPen and may not be copied, reproduced, republished, or posted in whole or in part in any form without the prior written consent of MidPen.